Assalamu alaikum. One of the big problems with Judaism that we find in the Talmudic era texts is this sort of over-reverence for the rabbis to the point of worship. And so we've discussed some of these on the channel before, and we're going to go through another example today. Today we're looking at the Midrash. We're actually going to look at the same story in two different Midrashim. And so here what we're seeing is a story which describes how God in heaven, or I should say above heaven, he actually studies the work of a certain rabbi. He studies a certain rabbi's works and he quotes them as evidence, etc., etc. So the Midrash we're looking at is Bamidbar Rabbah, I guess. You can see in the highlighted portions it is a Midrash. And in the blue highlighted portion, you can see that it was, traditionally, it is ascribed to the same author who wrote Genesis Rabbah, which is a very famous Midrash. So here is the relevant text. At the time when Moses ascended to the heavenly heights, he heard the voice of the Holy One, blessed be he, who was sitting and studying the red heifer, and uttering a Halakhah in the name of the one who spoke it. Rabbi Eliezer said, a calf is 1 year old and a cow is 2. So a calf, when written in the Torah, is 1 year old and a cow is 2 years old. So this is God speaking, right? So this is God citing, or as it says, uttering the Halakhah in the name of the one who spoke it. So who's the one who spoke it? Who's the name in which God is speaking this? Rabbi Eliezer, because God says, Rabbi Eliezer said, a calf, when written in the Torah, is 1 year old and a cow is 2 years old. Moses then says to God, so Moses said before him, Master of all the worlds, may it be your will that he, Rabbi Eliezer, would be from my loins, meaning would be from my descendants. God says to him, be by your life, meaning assuredly, he is from your loins. For so it says in the scripture, Exodus 18:4, and the name of the other son of Moses was Eliezer, the same particular name. So what is this? God studying a rabbinic writing and citing Halakhah in the name of that writing. So he's quoting him. So he's quoting Rabbi Eliezer as evidence. So because Rabbi Eliezer said this, so God is quoting that as evidence. And he's sitting and studying this sort of rabbinic writing. What is this? So we can actually find this statement from Rabbi Eliezer here. So this is Mishnah Parah. Here you can see the text. Okay, and I'm just going to skip forward to the relevant part. So Mishnah Parah 1, you see on the right the highlighted portion. Rabbi Eliezer says, the heifer is no more than 1 year old and the cow no more than 2 years old. And then in the Midrash, God says, Rabbi Eliezer said, a calf, when written in the Torah, is 1 year old and a cow is 2 years old. So the statement that God is quoting can be found, and he is quoting Rabbi Eliezer, and he's citing Halakhah in his name. What is the point of citing it in his name and quoting him? Of course, he's using him as evidence. Why does God need to cite Halakhah in the name of a rabbi, and why does he have to study a rabbi's interpretation? We go to a commentary. They mention some more stuff that is actually found in another Midrash, which unfortunately is in Hebrew, so we can't see the English, but we can derive the text, and I'll show you that in a moment. But in this commentary, the text that is found in the other Midrash is mentioned. So when Moses heard this, right, so when Moses, we'll just read it from the top. We read in Bamidbar Rabbah 19:7 that when Moses ascended to heaven, he heard the voice of God expounding the law of the red heifer, quoting, my son Eliezer says that the heifer has to be 2 years old, whereas when the Torah uses the term calf, this refers to a 1 year old animal. When Moses heard this, he said, how is it possible that you, O God, who owns heaven and earth, are sitting expounding your Torah and quoting a human being as proof the Torah has been interpreted correctly? God answered that at some point in the future, a righteous person would arise who would commence his discourse in this portion by citing these words, and his name would be Rabbi Eliezer, etc. So the commentary confirms, basing its information off another Midrash, that God is sitting and expounding the Torah and quoting Rabbi Eliezer as proof that the Torah has been interpreted correctly. So the other Midrash, again, is in Hebrew, but we can find the text for it. Of course, we just found the text for it in this commentary right here. It's mentioned right there. but the source of this information, the Midrash, is quoted by Michael Hoffman in his page 133 of his book Judaism Discovered, and it's mentioned here. God sits and occupies himself with the section of the red heifer, and he cites a Halakhah in the name of Rabbi Eliezer, despite the astonishment of Moses, who cries, "Sovereign of the universe, thou dost hold in thy power the creatures of heaven and earth, yet thou dost sit and cite a Halakhah in the name of a human being." So this is, the reference is Pesikta de Kahana Para Ed Mendel Baum, page 73. I probably butchered the Hebrew, but you can see that the commentary got its information from this Midrash. And I asked, okay, so this is the Midrash that we're dealing with right here. So it is, as you can see in the yellow, one of the earliest Midrashim. And so I asked the rabbi to confirm this. I asked him, is it possible for me to access the following reference online in English? And then I gave him the reference I just showed, the one that is quoted right here in the book by Michael Hoffman. And then I told him that I found this part about Moses saying, how can you quote a human being as proof that the Torah has been interpreted correctly? I said I found this in another book, in a commentary. So I found this in the commentary I just showed you, but then it has this extra part which isn't in the Midrash that I initially showed you, right? So I was asking him, well, is this in this source that Michael Hoffman is quoting? Is the part where Moses questions why God is doing this in this source, this Midrash that Michael Hoffman quoted? And the rabbi confirms for me, yes, it is there. I found it, but not in English. It is in Pesikat de Rav Kahana 4:7. This is the Hebrew text. At least this is 7. Maybe you have to read on to find that part. But you can see the rabbi has now confirmed the statement where Moses questions God, how can you sit and quote a human being as proof the Torah has been interpreted correctly? He's given us the reference in Hebrew. He's confirmed it's there. And we know that Michael Hoffman has quoted it in his book. And we know it is in this commentary. So safe to say this is in the Midrash. But even if it weren't, we don't actually need that Midrash, because this story in the initial Midrash I showed you is the same thing, right? It just doesn't have the reaction from Moses that how come you're quoting a rabbi. You know, it doesn't have the reaction, but it still has the story. And now we can sit here and be like, what is going on? Why is God quoting Rabbi Eliezer as proof that first of all, why is he studying rabbis, the rabbinic writings? Why is he the student of rabbis? Why are the rabbis teaching him? Not only that, but why is he now quoting them and citing Halakhah in their name and citing them to show that he has understood Torah correctly? That is ridiculous. So this type of claim, it would be like, if we Muslims, we said that Allah above his throne, he has a copy of the books of Ibn Kathir or Ibn Taymiyyah. These are scholars in the Muslim tradition, and that Allah, he studies these books and then he quotes these books to prove that he's understood the Quran correctly. So this is very, very problematic, and it would be ridiculous if we said that. But that's what the Jews are saying here with their own scholars. So, of course, the studying rabbinic writings does remind us of Avodah Zarah 3b in the Talmud, which mentions there are 12 hours in the day. During the first 3, the Holy One, blessed be He, sits and engages in Torah study. So not only does God study Torah, but He also studies the writings of the rabbis. So this is a little bit ridiculous. God knows everything. Why would He have to study books? Especially the books of rabbis. So why is he studying his own book, and why is he studying the rabbinic writings and then using them as proof? Like why is God the student of the rabbi here? So Allah mentioned in the Quran about the Jews and Christians, اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا من دون الله والمسيح ابن مريم وما أمروا إلا ليعبدوا إلها واحدا لا إله إلا هو سبحانه عما يشركون. They have taken their scholars and monks as lords besides Allah, and also they have taken the Messiah, the son of Maryam. And they were not commanded except to worship one God. There is no God worthy of worship except Him. Exalted is He above whatever they associate with Him. So the Jews have taken their scholars and monks as lords besides God. And the Christians, in addition to that, have also taken the Messiah as a Lord. And in the last video, I explained the Arabic behind this, because some Christians think that when it says, and also the Messiah, this means that the Messiah must be taken as a Lord. No, this is an Arabic thing. It even happens in quote-unquote verse 3 of the same chapter, as I explained in the video where I said that in the Talmud it mentions that a certain rabbi knew Torah better than Moses himself. So I just wanted to clarify that up in case anyone's heard that doubt. It's an Arabic thing. It's not in English. It's not a thing in English, but it is in Arabic. So what the verse is saying is that they've taken their scholars and monks as lords besides Allah, and they have also taken the Messiah, the son of Maryam, as a Lord besides God as well. And I showed another verse in the Quran which uses this Arabic technique as well. But the point I'm driving home with this video is the sort of over-reverence of rabbis. So in the Talmud we have the rabbis overruling God, a certain rabbi knowing Torah better than Moses to a point where Moses can't even follow along. Here we have God studying the work of rabbis and citing Halakhah in this name. This is ridiculous. This is over-reverence of the rabbis, and it is worship. So Jews are worshiping their rabbis, and this is polytheism. This is idolatry. And I would call you to give it up and come to Islam, the pure religion.